Hunter Biden, this is according to the New York Times. So this is where it all stems from. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's youngest kid, was a Yale-educated lawyer. This is what they put in the New York Times. This is as nice as they can make it sound. He was a Yale-educated lawyer who had served on the boards of Amtrak and a number of nonprofit organizations and think tanks. I'm sure because he was a brilliant mind and not because he was the son of the vice president. So he did that, but the New York Times also admits he lacked any experience in Ukraine. And just months earlier, he had been discharged from the Navy Reserve after testing positive for cocaine. And what happens when you get a discharge from the Navy for testing positive for cocaine? You immediately get a job out of foreign countries' energy board for $50,000 a year. Why would you give a shit about your Navy Reserve? He got paid $50,000 a month for his work sitting on an energy board in the Ukraine. And that doesn't reek of corruption at all, does it? Of course it does. It's 100% corruption. And guess what? Here's what the New York Times says. Hunter Biden, who left Burisma's board last month, was one of many politically prominent Americans of both major parties who made money in the Ukraine over the last decade. Yeah, you know who one of those guys was? Paul Manafort. In several cases, most notably that of Paul Manafort, President Trump's former campaign chairman, that business came under criminal investigation that exposed a seedy side of the lucrative Western consulting industry in Ukraine. So Joe Biden, according to the New York Times, is involved in a seedy side of lucrative Western consulting industry in the Ukraine. At the very least, Joe Biden's son, the son of the vice president, is involved in the seedy side of lucrative Western consulting industry in the Ukraine. That's what the New York Times is admitting. And one of his most memorable performances, this is Joe Biden. This is also from the Times. One of his most memorable performances came on a trip to Kiev in March 2016 when he threatened to withhold, this is Joe Biden, threatened Ukraine to withhold $1 billion in United States loan guarantees if Ukraine leaders did not dismiss the country's top prosecutor. The pressure campaign worked. The prosecutor general, long a target of criticism from other Western nations and international lenders, was soon voted out by the Ukrainian parliament. Among those who had a stake in the outcome was Hunter Biden Jr. Hunter Biden, Mr. Biden's younger son, who at the time was on the board of an energy company owned by a Ukrainian oligarch who had been in the sights of the first prosecutor general. So there's a prosecutor general in the Ukraine. He's going to investigate the seedy business dealings of Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son. And what did Joe Biden say to the president of the Ukraine? This is what he said to him.
Press conference said, no, I said, we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said, I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, 6 hours? I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money.
That is exactly what they are accusing Trump of doing. They're accusing Trump of using United States funds to hold over the head of the president of the Ukraine to do something that Trump wants, which is to investigate Biden's kid, and his involvement. That's what they're claiming that Trump is doing. He just admitted he did it. He just admitted it, which shows you again the herd mentality of the journalism in the United States, television and in print. Because no one is reporting this. They've decided this is a non-story, so they won't report it. They only focus on Trump. This is just like what they did with the Clinton Foundation. Kyle Kalinske makes this point that the entire U.S. news media decided the Clinton Foundation, what Dylan Ratigan just pointed out was their corruption, was a non-story. And that was a conspiracy theory that Trump and Trumpers would throw at them. So they didn't investigate it. Trump beat Hillary over the head with the Clinton Foundation's corruption, and it hurt her, and it helped him become president. And he is going to take this and beat Joe Biden over his fucking head with this at every chance possible, because Joe Biden is corrupt, and so is his kid. And everybody's going to know it who's going to vote for Trump, because he's going to tell everybody. And Joe Biden is going to wither like an old man with early onset dementia that he is. So here it gets brought up by Ted Lieu. Ted Lieu was the number one Russiagator, the number one propaganda. Instead of putting up a platform to beat Trump, they do all this garbage. He's asked about this today. Watch this.
And I also do want to get your take, though. The underlying problem here was, of course, Hunter Biden receiving $50,000 a month from a Ukrainian energy company. Do you think that that is evidence of corrupt behavior?
No, people sit on boards and they get monetary payments. And what the evidence actually shows is that Ukrainians looked into this, terminated the investigation, found nothing there. So this is just made up, which also is very troubling, because you have the American president essentially asking the Ukrainians to manufacture dirt on a political opponent, because there really was no evidence of corruption.
Here's what Kyle Kalinske says to that. He tweets out that video and he says, imagine what he would say if Ivanka was getting $50,000 a month from a Russian company. Imagine what Ted Lieu would say.